Hello, everybody. Welcome into GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Thursday, February 13th. I hope everybody's having a great day so far. We have a lot to get to. There's lots of MLB news as we preview some more of the season, get into a major signing, as well as some news from around the NFL with some veteran quarterbacks potentially being on the move. Where will they go? Where will they end up? We'll talk about all of that and more coming up in just a second. But before we do all of that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Thursday, February 13th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into our first topic of the day, that having to do with Aaron Rodgers and the quarterback situation from around the league. The Jets and Aaron Rodgers have officially decided to part ways with each other heading into this season. This was one that was up in the air. For a long time, I thought the Jets were going to bring him back, let him play through his age 42 season, but a couple things have gotten in the way of that. They flew him in and had a meeting where they were still undecided and said, hey, if you are going to join our team, these are a couple things that you need us to do. And it seems like one of those big turning points, the reason that the Jets decided not to keep him, is because they asked him not to do his weekly appearances on the Pat McAfee show, and he said no. He said he was going to continue to do his weekly appearances on the Pat McAfee show. And this was asked for a couple of reasons, right? Because on surface level, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal that a player is going to do a media appearance. There's plenty of players around the league that do weekly media appearances on local shows, on national shows, and stuff like that. But the issue is, this is one that's been bringing up a lot of drama. Aaron Rodgers is a guy that doesn't tend to be tight-lipped when it comes to a lot of things. He's someone that's just going to speak his mind, especially when things aren't going well. And it causes a lot of issues behind the scenes. There were also asks for him to show up into all the off-season workouts, which that one I understand. Whichever was the final blow, and whatever decision they came to, it ended up coming out as we are going to be moving on from Aaron Rodgers. And this carries with it a $49 million dead cap hit that the Jets now have to deal with. That can be split up over a couple of years, or it can be done over one, depending on if it's a post or pre-June 1 cut. But now Aaron Rodgers is a free agent. And right now, the Jets quarterback room, they're going to need to find one. Because right now, they have Tyrod Taylor on a one-year deal, as well as a couple of young players in Jordan Travis and an XFL/UFL former starting quarterback in Adrian Martinez on the roster. Those are the three quarterbacks that they have rostered. And having Tyrod there isn't necessarily the worst thing. He's a guy that has led teams to the playoffs before when they have a good defense. And I think with this Jets team, if you have to stick with Tyrod for one season, that's not the worst thing in the world. But obviously, that's not going to be very inspiring for Jets fans. So the Jets need to go out and find what probably would be a bridge quarterback. At this point, I'm thinking a guy along the lines of Russell Wilson might come in. He's going to be another one of those veteran quarterbacks, someone that could come in and change the culture, or at least go with the culture that they're trying to set up, not going to be an outlier, someone that sticks out like a thumb, like Aaron Rodgers was with this Jets team. Now, where Aaron Rodgers goes is a whole nother question, right? We've been talking about this for a while, and there's a lot of different places that he could. The Steelers seem like the number one option, and there's a lot of reports saying that the Steelers would be a good spot for him, but there hasn't been a lot of reports talking about how interested the Steelers actually are in a guy like Aaron Rodgers. Reports coming out from the Steelers earlier on in this offseason were talking about the Steelers wanting to find a long-term answer at the quarterback position. They didn't want to just keep going with these bridge quarterbacks. They were going to sign Justin Fields or Russell Wilson to one of those long-term deals that they were talking about. In this point, it seems like they're leaning towards Justin Fields. It seems like Russell Wilson is going to be the one that's out of there. But now that Aaron Rodgers is out, there's a relationship there with him and Mike Tomlin, but it doesn't seem to fit what Art Rooney the owner was saying about their plan for this upcoming offseason. Now, you don't you don't always just get a first ballot Hall of Famer able to walk in to your room, to your team. And if the Steelers were able to get a quarterback with like Aaron Rodgers, if he's at his best, probably going to be able to bring in a guy like Devontae Adams with him. If they're able to bring the cap space, that fixes a lot of their problems right there. It would be the best fit for him. Hands down, that would be the best fit for Aaron Rodgers. It just might not be the best fit for the Steelers. Do I think it's going to happen? Probably not. I think there's a couple of other spots that would be better for that might be more interested in him than the Steelers are, and I don't know if the Steelers are really going to be willing to take a risk on a 42-year-old quarterback, someone that comes with his own issues, especially in a locker room that has dealt with a lot of big personalities currently and in the past, especially when they said they wanted to choose one of their two guys. Seems like they're going to bring back Justin Fields. I don't know if you really want Justin Fields to sit for another year while you have Russell Wilson, while you have Aaron Rodgers there. So other options there for him include, of course, the oft talked about Minnesota Vikings route. Continue his Brett Favre arc of leaving the Packers, going to the Jets, and then going to the Vikings. And this one is only on here because, it's a little funny, right? This one is probably not going to happen. The Vikings have their future, or what they think is their future, in J.J. McCarthy. If it turns out that he is not the answer, they can go out and they can get Aaron Rodgers. But Aaron Rodgers probably is looking for a place that he will be the guaranteed starter. Again, I think if he can go to Minnesota, that's going to be an excellent team. We saw what Sam Darnold was able to do with that squad. I can only imagine what Aaron Rodgers could do with that squad if they were able to go land him and they decided to push back J.J. McCarthy's season debut for another year. Do I think that's going to happen? No. I think they're all in on J.J. McCarthy. They took him with the top 15 pick in the NFL draft at number 11, and I think they're going to commit to him and have him be the guy. Aaron Rodgers would be a good fit over there, though. Outside of that, there aren't really a lot of great fits. We can talk about the Los Angeles Rams. They're having their own drama with a future Hall of Fame quarterback in Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford being rumored to go to a lot of places, including the New York Giants. If he moves out of there, Aaron Rodgers would be a really good fit for them. For a year, a rental quarterback that can go into a playoff team, that would be the best spot for him. Now, that does depend on what this Rams and Matthew Stafford end up doing. If Matthew Stafford comes back, that one is out of there. So that's more of an iffy, but I do think if Matthew Stafford is gone, the best spot is the Rams. He already has a house over there in LA. Pretty comfy. He's from California. He gets to return over there, and I think that would be a really good spot for him as well. A couple other ones that he might go to just because they need quarterbacks: the Giants, the Raiders, the Browns, the Titans, right? There are two quarterbacks that are probably going to go in the top 10. There are 4 teams that are picking in the top 10. 2 of them are going to be left out. One of those teams, whether it be the Titans, the Browns, the Raiders, or the Giants, could go out and get Aaron Rodgers. None of those teams, I think, would be a great fit for Aaron Rodgers. None of those teams, I think, should be particularly interested in Aaron Rodgers because he's going to be too good for them to get their quarterback of the future, but he's not going to be bad enough. But he's not going to be the kind of guy that you want as a bridge quarterback either. Those ones, I think, are the most likely ones to sign him and have him be a starter. But I just don't think it makes a lot of sense for the team or for Aaron Rodgers to go to those places at age 42, especially after experiencing a bad offensive line with the Jets this last season. There's a couple more that I think are interesting, though. And these are places where you could be a backup. And the reason why I put these at the end is because we all know Aaron Rodgers isn't going to go be a backup. He's definitely a top 32 quarterback in the NFL. I would go as far to say that he's a top 20 quarterback in the NFL, which is still a pretty steep fall off for him. We were having him in top 10 conversations at the beginning of last season. Now, top 20, I think, is the perfect spot for him. Maybe top 25 if you really have an anti-Aaron Rodgers agenda there. But there's a couple spots that I think would be really good for him to go, either as a veteran leader that could teach a quarterback or as a true backup. And as a true backup, that would be the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins desperately need to find a guy that they can have behind Tua Tagovailoa. Tua does not have the injury history that you want as you're trying to build a successful team. That is one that I think would work out really well, although I do not see it happening at all because Aaron Rodgers is not going to go somewhere to be a backup. The other one is the Indianapolis Colts. And we talked about that connection with the Pat McAfee show. That's in Indianapolis. He can just go do his weekly segments over there. And I would say that this would be a bigger, more likely reason, or more likely team, if the fact that the Colts and Pat McAfee didn't get into a fight earlier this season. They got into a bit of a fight. I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal, but I don't know if the Colts would be all in on letting Aaron Rodgers come in to either be a backup or a season start, or to be a backup to Anthony Richardson, which is the only way that they would bring him in, right? He needs to understand Anthony Richardson is the presumed future of that team. Even if he hasn't really looked his best, it's going to be his team to start. If you bring Aaron Rodgers in for a year and sit him, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. He needs reps on the field, and I don't think that works out, especially as he enters his third year in the NFL, having started some games already. It'll feel more like a benching, like it did with Joe Flacco, rather than anything that comes with just being a mentor. Still, there's a little bit of connection with Pat McAfee and the Colts, and having Aaron Rodgers as that veteran quarterback to help Anthony Richardson grow, I think could be pretty good. They play very different play styles, but I think if Aaron Rodgers is able to help him a little bit, like he did with Jordan Love, that could be really good for the Colts. Overall, I think his landing spot is probably going to be with one of those four teams that I mentioned picking in the top 10, either the Giants, the Raiders, the Browns, or the Titans. And if I had to pick one, it's going to be the Browns or the Titans, just because those two teams seem like the ones that, if a quarterback is there, would be less likely to take it. The Titans might trade out of number 1. That leaves a spot open for Aaron Rodgers. The Browns need to focus on edge rusher after they're going to most likely trade away Myles Garrett. I see them taking Abdul Carter at 2. The Giants have seemingly fallen in love with Shadur Sanders, and they'll take him at 3, or Cam Ward if he somehow falls to him. And the Raiders also have fallen in love with Shadur Sanders. They'll take him at 6 if they fall to him there. Overall, just not too much going on, and I think Aaron Rodgers ends up in one of those top 10 teams to finish off his career. The other potential is him retiring, which there is real potential in that. He's a 41-year-old guy. There aren't a lot of great options for him to go to. I don't know if he wants to end like this. I feel like he wants to still be playing football, but I also felt like the Jets would bring him back. So we're not sure. He's a guy that's probably going to go into the dark room and reflect a little bit on his decisions, on what he's going to do as he gets further away from his prime in the NFL. But I think he's coming back for at least one more season, one more year to try and, finish up, end on a positive note. But let me know what your thoughts are. Where do you think Aaron Rodgers ends up? I'd love to hear your thoughts. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, the NFL offseason is officially here, and that means we're going to do our dream offseason for each NFL team. We did the Eagles the other day. We're going to continue through the NFC East, this time stopping over in Dallas and taking a look at the Cowboys. We'll be right back here on GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast.